In the world of the young and the restless, where betrayals often intertwine with desperate choices and family loyalties collide with unrestrained passions, the idea that Audra could suddenly become the target of a kidnapping plot resonates deeply with the show's ongoing themes of obsession, revenge, and the dark cost of ambition. The whispers about her disappearance and even her possible death in Nice are not just wild speculation. They align chillingly with the patterns viewers have come to expect when secrets pile to high and rivalries spiral out of control. In this case, Audra is no longer the manipulator pulling strings in boardrooms or bedrooms, becomes the prey, caught in a deadly trap orchestrated by someone she once underestimated. The reveal that Kyle could be the one behind her abduction shocks the narrative to its core, because Kyle, while reckless and vindictive in his own right, has never descended to such physical cruelty before. His decision to kidnap her, bind her, and keep her locked away in a foreign city exposes a darker side that many feared might exist but never thought would be unleashed. And it raises the question of whether the Abbott legacy is strong enough to survive the stain of such monstrous behavior. When Kyle corners Audra, the layers of their tangled past come crashing down upon them. Their relationship has been defined by shifting alliances, explosive betrayals, and an undeniable sexual chemistry that blurred the lines between love and hate. Yet in that room in Nice, stripped of glamour and power games, Audra faces Kyle not as a rival, but as a victim pleading for her life. She begs for mercy, her sharp tongue silenced by terror, while Kyle, driven by anger and a warped need to erase her from his world, shows no sign of relenting. The tension builds unbearably as Kyle, consumed by his need to make Audra disappear forever, chooses fire as his weapon of obliteration. The sight of him striking a match, setting the room alight while she is bound and helpless, is the kind of horrifying turn that cements this storyline as one of the show's darkest in years. It transforms Kyle from a flawed man into something much more frightening, a man willing to burn away evidence of his sins and a human life in the process. What Kyle doesn't anticipate is the arrival of Harrison, the young boy, coming to Nice on his own in search of his father, represents innocence and hope in a world often clouded by deceit and manipulation. Harrison's decision to come without Summer adds weight to his actions. This is not a child shielded by his mother's protection, but one navigating the dangerous truth of who his father might really be. His timing, tragic yet miraculous, puts him at the center of a nightmare no child should ever witness. As the flames flicker across the room, Harrison sees his father not as the man who tucks him in at night or teaches him lessons about the world, but as someone capable of cruelty so profound that it shatters the foundation of trust between them. The image of Kyle tormenting Audra, ignoring her pleas for life, is burned into Harrison's memory. In soap opera tradition, moments like these become defining scars, the kind that ripple through families for decades, setting the stage for conflicts and traumas that echo through generations. Despite the horror, Harrison's courage emerges. Confronted with smoke, fire, and the threat of losing someone before his eyes, he refuses to run. His instincts push him toward compassion, and he seizes a knife, cutting through the ropes that bind Audra's hands. In this moment, Harrison becomes the unlikely hero of the story, saving a woman his father condemned. The symbolism of a child rescuing the adult, of purity and innocence defying corruption and hatred, transforms the storyline into something far greater than a kidnapping plot. Harrison not only frees Audra physically, but also exposes the depth of Kyle's fall. By choosing life over silence, Harrison aligns himself with truth and bravery, actions that will inevitably place him in conflict with his own blood. Audra's escape with Harrison solidifies the twist. Viewers are led to believe that she is doomed, that the flames consuming the room will erase her from the canvas. But soap operas thrive on the unexpected. And here it is, the intervention of the least likely savior that reshapes everything. Kyle flees the scene, convinced that his plan has succeeded, that the fire has claimed Audra's life and erased the evidence of his crime. His belief in her death gives him a fleeting sense of relief, a dangerous delusion that will unravel once he learns she survived. For Audra, surviving such an ordeal not only changes her role in Genoa City's power games, but also turns her into a walking witness of Kyle's darkest secret. She owes her life to Harrison, and that bond will not be easily broken. The ripple effects of this storyline are massive. For Kyle, the revelation that Harrison saw everything will be catastrophic. The relationship between father and son, already strained by Kyle's reckless actions and unstable emotions, may now be beyond repair. Children in soaps often become the moral compass, the mirror reflecting the sins of their parents, and Harrison's perspective will forever carry the weight of what he saw in Nice. He cannot unsee the cruelty, the fire, the moment his father abandoned compassion. This knowledge places him at odds with Kyle, perhaps even setting the stage for custody battles or further family implosions as Summer, Jack, and others react to the trauma inflicted on the boy. Kyle may try to silence Harrison or manipulate him into secrecy, but children on soaps are notoriously honest, and his testimony could become the weapon that destroys his father's reputation forever. For Audra, her survival reshapes her identity. Once seen as manipulative and self-serving, she now becomes a woman marked by victimhood and resilience. The audience's sympathy shifts toward her, regardless of her past misdeeds, because she faced death and was saved not by her own cunning, but by the purity of a child's heart. This will change how Genoa City views her, creating new alliances and perhaps even new enemies as people either rally to her side or doubt her version of events. And in soap operas, surviving a murder attempt always comes with power holds knowledge that can bring down Kyle, and wielding it will be as much about timing as about truth. Thematically, this plotline deepens the eternal contrast that fuels the young and the restless, the war between innocence and corruption, the struggle between family loyalty and moral accountability. Harrison's act of heroism reveals that the next generation cannot be shielded forever from the sins of their parents. Kyle's descent into darkness shows how unchecked rage can consume even those with the best intentions. Audra's transformation from predator to survivor highlights the fragility of power and the unexpected ways redemption can take root. In the grand scheme of the show, this storyline also sets up long-term consequences. Legal battles may follow if Audra presses charges against Kyle. Jack and Diane may be forced to choose between protecting their son or confronting the monster he has become. Summer may seize the moral high ground, distancing herself and Harrison from Kyle in a move that devastates him personally while strengthening her own role as protector. Victor Newman, always eager to exploit weakness, could use this scandal to diminish Abbott's influence, seizing control of business opportunities while the family reels from disgrace. What makes this arc so compelling is its unpredictability. While viewers might have expected Kyle and Audra to clash over romance, betrayal, or corporate intrigue, few could have predicted such a visceral and violent turn. The decision to place Harrison at the center ensures that the emotional fallout will last for years, tying multiple characters together in a web of guilt, loyalty, and survival. It is not just a kidnapping plot, but a redefining moment in the soap's legacy, one that will be remembered alongside the great fires, betrayals, and shock twists of the past. And as always in The Young and the Restless, survival is never the end. Audra's return to Genoa City will not be a quiet one. She carries the scars of fire, the trauma of near death, and the gratitude toward the boy who saved her. Kyle believes she is gone, but when he sees her alive, the horror of his actions will crash down upon him. The audience will watch eagerly as guilt gnaws at him, as Audra uses her survival as leverage, and as Harrison struggles to reconcile the father he loves with the monster he saw. The questions linger. Can Kyle be redeemed, or has he crossed a line from which there is no return? Can Audra find strength in her victimhood, reshaping herself into a woman Genoa City must respect rather than dismiss? And most importantly, will Harrison's innocence survive the weight of what he witnessed, or will he become the child forever haunted by the flames in Nice? This sweeping arc, layered with betrayal, horror, survival, and the pure courage of a child, ensures that the young and the restless continues to live up to its title. It remains a show where the restless hearts of Genoa City push characters into extremes, where the young must carry burdens far beyond their years, and where no secret can stay buried for long. The air and night still carried the scent of smoke when Audra, trembling and breathless, fell into Harrison's small arms, clutching him with the kind of desperation only the freshly spared possess. Her voice cracked, but her words carried the steel of both gratitude and fury, telling the boy he had saved her life and that he had witnessed everything, the horrifying truth about his father. To Harrison, the words sliced deeper than the flames had ever threatened to. His father, the man he had trusted, the man he had come all this way to find, was a monster, and no amount of excuses could erase the sight of Kyle striking the match and walking away as if human life meant nothing. The innocence in Harrison's eyes had been scorched away by fire, replaced with an unshakable image that would mark him forever. Meanwhile, Kyle returned to Claire's place as if he had finally rid himself of a thorn in his side, celebrating in private the illusion of victory. The idea that Audra's cries had been silenced, her body consumed by fire, filled him with a vile satisfaction. The darkness he had embraced was so complete that he saw her death not as a crime, but as liberation. He lifted a glass as though toasting his own twisted triumph, oblivious to the fact that the very person he had sought to destroy was alive, free, and burning with a fury he could not comprehend. The contrast between his smug celebration and the reality of her survival is the kind of grotesque irony soaps thrive upon. For it is in such moments that the seeds of downfall are most powerfully sown. Audra, though shaken, was no longer the broken woman tied to a chair in a burning room. She was alive, and survival had carved her into something harder, more dangerous. Her terror was transforming into purpose, her fear into rage, her helplessness into a thirst for vengeance. Every second she drew breath reminded her that Kyle believed her gone, that he had danced on what he thought was her grave. That mistake would be his undoing. Now she held the most powerful weapon a woman like Audra could wield: the truth. Harrison's testimony and her own scars would expose Kyle for the monster he had become, and when she returned, she would not return as prey. She would come back as reckoning. For Harrison, the burden was heavier than any child should carry, but his very innocence made his words sharper than any weapon. He had no reason to lie, no agenda to spin only the raw memory of what he had seen his father do. His horror at Kyle's cruelty cemented his loyalty to Audra, the woman he had saved, the woman who had reassured him even in the aftermath of her torment. This bond was unbreakable now, and as he stood by her side, the boy became a living reminder that Kyle's sins could not be erased. In Genoa City, the truth has a way of cutting through even the thickest walls of power and privilege, and Kyle's carefully built facade was about to crumble. Audra's return to the world would be like a ghost walking back into the light, her presence an accusation, her voice a dagger. Kyle, unprepared, would find himself stripped of control, hunted not by shadows, but by the very woman he had tried to erase. His arrogance in celebrating too soon, his blindness in underestimating both Audra's resilience and Harrison's courage, would bring him face to face with the kind of consequences no Abbott name could shield him from. For every flame he lit, there would now be a firestorm waiting to consume him, and this time it would be his life, his family, his legacy that stood in the ashes. Audra was alive, and Kyle had no idea that the nightmare he thought he had ended was only just beginning.